Hello and Happy New Year! Today I am sharing with you the 3 Stamp Club projects for January of 2025. If you're following along to this tutorial just to make cards along with me or to be inspired, then welcome and thank you. If you are following along and you are part of Stamp Club at home, this tutorial will be helpful for you to complete your projects that you are going to make and you've already received the materials for. So we're going to be making 3 cards today, and we're going to start with this one, which we're using as a Valentine's card. So I want to point out that the stamp set Hugs for Love is the one that I'll be using on the first card, and it has a coordinating punch. Let me show you that, called To the Point, and you can see that it punches out these shapes. And then there is another stamp set that also coordinates very nicely with this punch called Bright Borders. This stamp set I'm not using today, but I will be using this one and the punch. So let's get started. For Stamp Club at home, go ahead and pull out your packet that looks like this. And we are going to be starting with a Berry Burst card base. And you're going to go ahead, if it's pre-scored, you're going to go ahead and fold it. If your piece is not pre-scored, you'll make a score mark at 5.5. No, our paper is 5.5 by 8.5, and you're going to make a score mark at 4.25 and fold it. Then you'll want to go ahead and press in that fold with your bone folder. All right, for today's card, we are not using designer series paper, but we're actually going to create our own background paper. So you have 2 pieces of white cardstock that are the same size. One is for the inside of the card. We're going to set that one aside. And one is for the front of the card. That's where we're going to begin. We're also going to be stamping off the edges of this. So you'll want to just grab a piece of scrap paper of some sort. All right, the first thing that I'm going to do is pull out my ink colors. And I will be using 3 colors of ink pad. We're using Berry Burst, Highland Heather, and Bubble Bath. So the first step is going to be creating this background paper, and we're going to begin with Bubble Bath. All right, now I have the large plain heart from the stamp set. And for starters, we're just going to put about 5 of these randomly onto your paper. And you do want to change up the position of the stamps. You can do that by turning the stamp or by turning the paper. And we're using this heart first because it's our largest image. All right, we're going to let some of these hang off the edge down here, like so. And I haven't done one upside down, so let's turn one kind of this way. All right, that is our large Bubble Bath heart. The next thing we're going to do is take Berry Burst ink. And this time you're going to use the stamp that is the heart with the little lines going across it. This is really cute when you just look at it, but look at how cute and amazing it is once you stamp it onto the paper. It just jumps out with those lines. That looks great. All right, so in a similar fashion, we're going to turn the stamp or turn the paper, or a little of both, and randomly put these hearts onto our piece of white cardstock. So we're starting with the largest stamp. Now we're going to a medium-sized stamp, and then you probably can guess we're going to use a smaller stamp after this. Now that scratch paper is coming in handy so that we can stamp off the edge on some of these and get just a peak of color, and the rest goes onto the scratch paper. Let's do that again up here. And how about one over here? All right, each time you do it, it's going to be a little bit different, so you have nothing to worry about. It's just a random print. All right, next we're going to take our smallest stamp for the background, and that is the small set of hearts, and we'll use Highland Heather for this stamping. All right, now we're going to, once again, random and varying the position, add our little Highland Heather hearts. This is nice because it's a smaller stamp, so you're able to fill it in to these spaces, adding just a little bit where it looks like it needs it. All right, take a look at your piece and see if you're happy with it. Again, we've created basically our own designer series paper or background paper. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is a little bit of a sponging technique. Now you might have a sponge that you already have in your collection, and you can grab that. An old style of sponge that you might have looks like this one, which we used to carry as a stamping sponge. Right now we have the blender brushes for sponging type techniques. We also have the sponge daubers available. So we're going to use the sponge dauber this time. And we're going to sponge all around the edges. Now, different techniques and trends kind of come and go, and sponging a while back was very popular. We almost didn't make a card without adding some kind of sponging to it. But in recent months, and maybe even a couple years, we haven't done as much sponging. So we're looking to bring a little bit of that back. As you can see, I'm just dabbing onto the ink pad, picking up the ink on the sponge dauber, and then scraping it down at the edge of the cardstock. So this is just going to put that little shadow of color in Berry Burst all the way around the edge. You can always go back and add more, so start with it kind of light at first, and then you can build it up if you need to. You can see I'm doing it pretty lightly. You only need to go back into the ink pad every couple of swipes. All right, now we've sponged all the way around the edge, and that gives it a really nice border. The sponges, when you're done with them, can just be rinsed in plain water and blotted dry on a paper towel and left to dry so that it's ready for you the next time. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is, let's keep stamping. So let's take that little scrap that is in your packet, and the first thing we're going to do is put the outline so that we can use our punch. All right, so with Highland Heather and this stamp, we're gonna go ahead. Now, I like the position of the stamp to be this way with the heart at the top and the bottom. You could definitely do it this way. It doesn't make a big difference, but I'll show you why I'm doing it this way. Okay, there it is on my scrap of white cardstock. And then let's go ahead and put the words in the middle. So with Berry Burst, I'm going to stamp the words, and let me tell you, I know this from experience because I've made several of this card at this point. You want to place these words a little bit lower than you initially think. When you look at it, you're going to think it's right, and then when you're done stamping it, it's going to be too high. So just drop it a little bit lower into the middle of this shape than you think. And then you've got it pretty centered. Okay, now we can take that. I can unlock my punch, and now, since I positioned my stamps this way on my scrap, I have plenty to hold on to, and I can drop it down into the punch, lining up the hearts. You're going to have a little bit of a white border all the way around it, so take a look and see if it's nice and centered inside the punch shape, and then punch it out. Okay, I'm going to move some of these stamps out of the way so they don't accidentally get ink on something that I don't want them to touch. So I'm cleaning them with my Simply Chamois, which I've gotten wet with just plain water. All right. Now we're going to take a piece of ribbon. I have this Highland Heather ribbon that was from a while back, so this is retired, but you can use any trim or ribbon that you feel like it looks good with these colors and with the hearts. So you can see my Highland Heather looks really good with this. If you're following along Stamp Club at Home, this ribbon was included in your packet. All right, so what I'm going to do is take some tear and tape, and I'm going to give myself a little strip of it, like so. I'm going to place the ribbon on the front of the card right where I think I'm going to want it, so determine your placement. Wrap one of the ends around to the back of the piece of cardstock, and then part of this piece of tape is going to hold this down. I could have cut this into two, but I'm just doing two things at once. So cut that and press that tape down really well. Okay, now we're going to look at the front again, making sure that this is nice and straight going across the card, like so. Bend it around the back and hold it in place while you flip it and secure that piece down with your tear and tape. I really like this ribbon method because it does save a lot of ribbon. I haven't really wrapped ribbon all the way around the card, and this could even be a little bit shorter. You were provided with 6 inches of ribbon. You could have gotten by with a little bit less even. All right, so those taped edges are pressed down, and we have our card front. This is going to go onto our card base, so we can go ahead and do that now. Let me make sure I've got this the right orientation. Okay, this is going to go on here. I can use my little pieces of tape here to assist in gluing this down, but obviously that's not enough to glue it down to the card front. So I'm going to remove the backings and then add some more adhesive. And you can use whatever adhesive you prefer. All right, so I'm just going around the edges, not using too much because I don't want it to ooze out and make my project sticky. All right, so now this can go right here onto the front of the card. Look at all of the edges. Line it up so it's centered and go ahead and press that down. Making sure you press down where that tape is underneath the ribbon as well. Okay, I'm gonna flip it and give that a good press all around. The next thing we're gonna do is add our words, and I'm going to use some Stampin' Dimensionals to do this. And I am looking for some here on my desk of stuff. Okay, they're probably in a project bin here. So give me a moment to locate them. There they are. All right, this is a pretty big piece, and so I'm going to use 4 dimensionals on the back to hold this in place where I want it. And I'm going to use 2 at the top and 2 at the bottom. There we go. Now, if you want to, you can take your pick tool to pick those backings off. Sometimes you can stab them and grab them like that, and sometimes that's helpful. Or you can simply use your fingernails. Mine are super short right now, which is not typical for me, but I'm taking a short break, and so they are short for now. All right, let's place that, make sure it's nice and straight, and press down your dimensionals. All right, we will put some embellishments on this. This little guy is sticking. We'll put some embellishments on here, but let's go ahead and do the stamping for the inside of the card. So go ahead and grab that other white piece of cardstock that was in your packet, or go ahead and cut a piece if you are stamping along with me and you're not from Stamp Club at Home. And what we're going to do is use that pink heart again with Bubble Bath. I really like how this looks. And we're going to also use the Happy Valentine's Day stamp and some hearts. Let's see here. Okay, so with Berry Burst and Happy Valentine's Day, I'm going to stamp that up here kind of in the top third of the card. And then watch how pretty this is. Let's take our Bubble Bath pink large heart. We're just going to stamp right over it. And that looks very pretty. Okay, there's this little strip of small hearts that I wanted to use, and so maybe right down here at the bottom. It's up to you where you put those. I think they would also be cute up here, so you can decide where you stamp those. And we'll go ahead and attach that to the inside of the card. For those of you who are in Stamp Club at home, you'll be using whatever adhesive you prefer. You'll see that I reach for my liquid glue a lot of the time. And I'll make mention if I use something different. All right, there's the inside of the card. Now let's do our embellishments, but I'm going to offer you one little extra thing that you can do if you wish. In your packet, there are some basic rhinestone gems, and you're going to go ahead and put those onto the card. Before you do that, if you would like to color them, I'm going to show you how I do that. So let me bring that scratch paper back in just to place underneath my rhinestones. And I'm using the Berry Burst Stampin' Blend. This one is the dark. And I'm going to use the brush marker end, and I'm simply going to color right on top of the rhinestones before I attach them to the card. When you're doing this part where you're adding the color, you might actually get some marker that goes off of the rhinestone, and you don't want a little blob on your card. So do your coloring before you attach them onto the front of your card. All right, give those just a moment to dry, and what I like to do is flip them over on my scratch paper, just press down. That way, if they're a little bit damp, the paper is going to take it instead of my fingers or the card. There we go. And then using your Take Your Pick tool, you can pop that up. And let's go ahead and do our little trio. 1, 2, and 3. Of course, the placement of the rhinestones is up to you. You can decide where you think they look best. Sometimes I want one here on the little sentiment. On this card, well, I'll do one on and I'll show you one that has it off, and then you can decide what you like the best. All right. I'm still going to use that paper to press it down. Again, just making sure that the gem is not wet. And you can see it's not. No ink is transferring. And there we have it. All right, there is our first Stamp Club project. A cute little Valentine card that will not take you long to make at all. Of course, there are other sentiments in here you could choose to trade out. We used Sending You a Big Hug, but you can see that there's other options there. All right, here is the other card. Where I place the rhinestones outside of this area, and you can decide which you like best. All right, we're going to move on to card number 2. Let me put all of those pieces aside. Those who are my Stamp Club VIPs who meet with me in person each month will be making this card as well. Right now, beginning on January 7th, is Celebration, which I wanted to mention, and also the beginning of our new mini catalog. So let me bring those out so you can get a peek. Here is the Celebration brochure, and Celebration is one of the best times of the year. With a $60 purchase, you can choose an item out of here for free. And there is also a $120 level. So at $120, you could either select 2 $60 gifts or one $120 gift. So there's lots of options, and we are using some of the product from Celebration, which I will point out. Also, the mini catalog, which is good January through April. and ordering can take place from this catalog beginning January 7th as well. This is where you will find these stamp sets and the coordinating punch. Okay, let's move those out of the way and continue with our second card. Now I'll tell you about this one. It's a stamp set that is not brand new. It's in the annual catalog for 2024-2025. But I did pull it out to use for club projects this time because we're going to change up the colors. All right, the colors that these are featured with are lemon lolly and peach pie, I think is the orange. Lost Lagoon, so it's like an orange, yellow, blue, brown, beautiful colors. And honestly, all of the cards and projects that I've made to date have been with that color scheme. Those colors you can see in the coordinating designer series paper. Today, we're gonna mix it up. So we're gonna use this stamp set, but we're gonna use papers from the celebration brochure. So this paper is found in here and can be a free gift with a $60 purchase. It's called Bloom Impressions. And you can see these lovely floral patterns with a subtle pattern on the back. The colors are bright and beautiful. And I was super excited to go ahead and use this paper and show it to you. So we're using this print, and if you are Stamp Club at home, you can go ahead and pull out, I'm looking for my packet here, your card pack. Here it is. All right, and it includes these pieces. Okay, so you can see that our colors are very different from the ones that are in the designer series paper that coordinate with this. They're bright, they're beautiful. We have moved on from fall and Christmas, and we're back to using some of these other fun colors. All right, you'll see in your packet your card base, which is made out of Coastal Cabana cardstock. And if it is pre-scored for you already, you can go ahead and fold it. If your piece is not pre-scored, you can use your tool to make a score line at 5.5 inches. And then go ahead and fold it and burnish your crease. Okay, that is our base. Then we have a piece of Blackberry Bliss cardstock. And we have a piece of white cardstock that we're actually I'm gonna do the stamping on it. This piece has some smudges, and actually the other side is pre-stamped, so we'll use that one when it gets down to it, but we'll go through the steps on this one. I just don't wanna waste this piece of cardstock because it's gonna work just fine. All right, so let's do that first. This is for the inside of the card. All right, we're going to use the little coffee rings and also the splatter just to put a little bit of a print on this white piece, and grab your Blackberry Bliss ink. And you're probably going to want that scratch paper or a new piece. All right, here's the design if you're following along. We're going to pick up our Blackberry Bliss ink, stamp it once on scratch paper. So we're using the second generation of the ink, and we're going to put a little ring image here on the cardstock. We're going to do that again. Pick up the ink, stamp it onto the cardstock, and then this one is going to go down here a little bit bigger, a little bit more of the ring is showing. Next, we'll use the splatter. Pick up ink from Blackberry Bliss, stamp it onto the scratch paper, and then onto the card. So we've got that muted version of the Blackberry Bliss, and do that one more time. All right, this is going to be the inside of our card. Like I said, I pre-stamped the other side, and it does not have ink smudges on it. this is the side we'll attach. A little bit of liquid glue on the back. Oh, maybe a little bit more. There we go. Okay, that's going to go right here, centered on the inside as a layer. All right, the inside is done. I didn't put any words on the inside. Of course, you're welcome to add words on the inside if you like. Now for the front piece, we're going to use our Blackberry Bliss, but we are going to run this through an embossing folder. So let me grab my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine and the embossing folder, and I'll bring that here into view so you can see how to do that. All right, here is the Stampin' Cut and Emboss. For this particular embossing folder, you do need to have the full-size machine. It will not fit in the mini. We only need 2 pieces to build our platform sandwich. And that is the base. So that's your 1 plate. Then we need our embossing folder, and you can see this is a large embossing folder. It's a big sized one, and it is a 3D, which is telling us what plates we need. So with a 3D embossing folder, we only need a 1 plate and a 4. All right, so I'm going to take my cardstock, place it in here. Now, one nice thing about this is so large, you could actually do 2 of these at once. 2 will fit in here at the same time. Since I'm only doing 1, I'm going to go ahead and position it just right in the middle and close that up. Now you're going to want the hinge, the closed side, to go in first. We're going to put our 4 plate on top of it, and then we're going to run this through the machine. Once that comes out the other side, we can see our beautiful embossed piece. Let me move this out of the way and take our layers apart. This is a new embossing folder to me. It has been out for a little while, but I just got it over the holidays and I love it. Look at that great chunky plaid print. All right, this is going to be used just as is, as a layer on the front of the card. So we can go ahead and attach that. Because it's thick and textured, you may want to add a little extra glue than you are used to using, just because it might seep down into those little crevices. So you can see I'm adding a little bit extra than I normally would. And let's go ahead and put that in place. All right, I'm looking all around and centering as I go. Slide it a little if you need to, like I did. And press that into place. All right, there is our front layer. I'm gonna shimmy that one up a little bit more. All right, and like I said, it's really thick and textured, so you want to give that a good press and get all of that adhesive sticking down to the cardstock. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is add our little strip of paper to the front. I will make a note about this. Stamp Club at Home. This piece is slightly longer than it needs to be, or taller. And so if you want, before you glue this down, which it's a little late for me to tell you, before you glue this down, you can lay it on here and then go ahead and trim it so it's the right length, exactly even with your Blackberry Bliss piece. Since I did not do that this time, I'm just going to go ahead and trim it and it'll be fine. But your piece needs to end up being 5¼ inches, and the piece that was in your packet is actually 5½ inches. So because I didn't do mine ahead of time, let's just trim it down. And I want to make sure that it goes completely from the top of the Blackberry Bliss completely to the bottom. I don't want any peeking out. So even though I'm going to cut this at 5¼ I'm actually still going to leave it a teeny bit longer, and I'm going to take a look at it before I trim it right at the 1/4 mark. See, I'm going to leave mine like that. So let me see if I can tell you what that measurement was. So 5¼ would be right there. I did 5 and 1, 2, almost 3/8, not quite, right in between. So we're talking 1/16 of an inch here. All right. Best practice is to lay this onto your Blackberry Bliss piece first and trim it before you glue this down. All right, here we go. We're going to put that piece on, and this is going to liven up the card. This is going to bring all the beautiful blooms and that great splash of color right to the front of our card. Like so. All right, and this is pretty multi-directional, so it doesn't really matter. There's not an upside down or a right side up, at least the way that I look at it. All right, that is now in place. All right, Stamp Club at Home. This piece was pre-die cut for you in case you don't have it, but what I will be using is the Stylish Shapes dies to cut this piece out. So let me grab my machine again and I will show you how to do that. All right, I needed to find that die. And our Stampin' Cut and Emboss. This time we're going to make our layers or our sandwich a little bit different. So we're going to start with a 1 plate. And then that is starting with a 1 plate, and then that is followed by a 2. That's a little shim. Sometimes I need a shim, but I don't need it right now. So I'm taking that out. A 2 plate, a 3 plate, and I like to use the same one as a bottom plate all of the time. Even though I do flip this and rotate it, this is always my bottom plate. Then we have Coastal Cabana cardstock and our die. And that gets topped with another 3 plate, and I use this one for the top. And you can run that right through your machine. And let's take a look at it. All right, there we have it. Now this piece is going to be the background to our stamped piece. So you have a scrap that is anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to possibly an inch wide and about 3½ or 4 inches across. So we're going to do our stamping on this, and I'll give you a little pointer. When you use this stamp, hello there, let's catch up, you're going to mostly want to pay attention to the words let's catch up. If those are straight, then the hello there is going to look good. Because the the scriptiness of that font. If you look at the hello there, it tends to end up crooked. So in fact, I'm going to reposition this because mine looks crooked just sitting on the block. So I'm doing this off camera because I'm putting it on my desk. I don't want it on the glass because if I have it on the glass, it tends to stick to the glass like that. So I'm putting this on my desktop, pressing my block onto it to pick it up. All right, so I'm going to be looking through the stamp at Let's Catch Up, Blackberry Bliss ink, and we'll see how we do. Of course, we can always stamp it on the back if we need a second try. All right, I want you to be able to see, but I also need to be able to see what I'm doing. So let's see if we can do that all at once. Okay, I'm going to try that. Some extra pieces were included in your packet in case you need a try or 2 or 3. There we go, nice and straight. Looks like there's a little fuzz on here. All right. Now you're going to take this piece, the way it is too long, and so we're going to trim it down so it fits onto here. Like I said, if this piece is a little bit wider, you may need to trim the top and the bottom. In this instance, I only need to trim the sides. So I'm going to do that next, taking a little bit off of this end, nice and straight, and about that same amount off of this end. And then this piece can get added to here. Now, if you left yours a little longer and it's way over by the edge here, that doesn't matter at all. Like if your white piece is longer, or it can be nice and tight against the words. Okay, with just a little liquid glue, this is now in place. And we'll set that aside for just a moment. Now you have a scrap of white cardstock. This is where we're going to learn a new technique possibly for you. We're going to do some masking. We're going to use the cup stamp, the mug, and I'm going to start with my Memento Tuxedo Black ink pad. So let's pull that out. The reason that I'm using this ink pad and why we all love it so much is because we can do our coloring with our Stampin' blends without this black ink bleeding. So there's a little info for you if you didn't know that before. All right, the first thing you're going to do after you ink up your stamp is stamp it over to the left, and it can be somewhat centered or down a little bit lower than center. And that will give us our first image. Now, we're going to mask this one, and so the way to do that is we're going to use a piece of masking paper. Now, I'm going to give you a little hint. This is a piece of masking paper, and I found out about masking paper before Stampin' Up! Started carrying it. So you'll see when I flip this over, this is a different brand, but Stampin' Up! Now carries it, and it is equal or better to this one. It's just that I still had a big pack of this, so I'm using it up before I open my Stampin' Up! Masking paper. So you just take a piece of masking paper. In this instance, I went ahead and cut it into a smaller piece because it does come in a larger sheet. And I'm going to stamp my mug, whatever image you are going to be masking. So in this instance, we're going to put a mask over that mug. That's what you stamp onto your masking paper. This paper is a little bit, not glossy, but there is a little bit of a finish to it. So let your ink dry for just a second before you continue. Now, if you don't have any masking paper, a second option is to use a Post-it. Okay, and you make your mask on the Post-it. Be sure to stamp your image where it's near to the sticky part because you're going to need this to stick. But believe it or not, the Post-it is a little bit thicker than the masking paper. So I prefer the masking paper, but in a pinch, you can use a Post-it. All right, now to save a little bit of time, I went ahead and cut this out. So this is my masking paper with the mug stamped on it, and then I cut it out with my paper snips very, very close to the black line, like almost on it. And I ended up with this. Now I'm going to flip this over and remove the backing, and it's got a seam on it somewhere. Which of course is hard to find right this second. Okay, let me get this backing started. Okay, I'm rolling it around trying to find that seam. And I've just about got it, and then I'll show it to you. I'm having to hold it closer to me so I can see what I'm doing. And then we're going to continue with this method. There we go. Okay, I finally got it started. So I'm going to peel off the backing paper of my, or the backing piece of my masking paper. Now this entire thing is sticky but repositionable. So I'm going to cover my image, whatever image you're trying to mask. Okay, we are trying to mask our mug. Cover it completely. Now we're going to stamp a second mug. This is so much fun. I always feel like it's a little bit magical when you do a masking technique. Now I'm going to stamp actually right onto the masking paper that is in place and is protecting my image. And I'm going to do it to the side and a little bit higher, like so. There's my second mug. And then the magic happens, because when we take off the mask, we are left with one image tucked neatly behind the other in a way that you cannot do without a masking technique. So it's a very handy technique to know, and I'm super happy to share it with you today. Now let's do our coloring. All right, I'm using Stampin' Blends. And I have, what do I have? I have Melon Mambo, Light and Dark. And I have Blackberry Bliss. This one is the light. I used the dark. Oh, I used the dark on our first card. I may have said that I used a Berry Burst marker, but I might have used Blackberry Bliss. Either one will work when you're coloring your rhinestones. Either one will work. All right, so with my Blackberry Bliss, this is light. I'm going to just color this second marker, second mug with my marker. So carefully inside the handle of that other one, because see how this mug is peeking through? So Stamp Club at home, you're going to go ahead and do the coloring of the mugs. If you have the Blackberry Bliss and the Melon Mambo Stampin' Blends, fantastic, that's easy. If you don't have those, perhaps you have the Stampin' Right markers, or in a pinch, any kind of coloring marker, colored pencil, whatever medium you would like to use for doing the coloring. All right, so there's the outside of the mug and the handle. Then I'm going to come back with my dark Blackberry Bliss. And I'll use the bullet end. And I'm just going to follow the lines that the artist has already given me. So I'm going to put a dark line here, right along these marks, and here. And look, instantly you look like more of an artist than you thought perhaps that you were. It gives you that nice shading. So I'm touching a couple different areas with my dark marker. I'm also going to do the edge of this mug, like so. All right, and the inside of the handle. All right, there's our first one. Now the second one is going to be with Melon Mambo, following the same steps. And there's not really any right or wrong when you're using your Stampin' Blends. Sometimes I change it up myself. Often I will start with the dark of the set of markers and do all my outlining, and then I'll go back and fill in with light. Today I'm doing all the coloring with the lighter version, and then I'm adding some depth with the darker. So you can do whatever feels good to you. Now the colors that I chose were because they are the colors featured in the Designer Series paper. And in case you didn't know this, on the back or on the packaging of our 12 by 12 or our 6 by 6 papers, it will tell you the colors that are in the packet of papers. So that way you don't have any guessing. It's all been done to make it easy for you. All right, that was my Melon Mambo light. Now I'm going to use dark, and I'll use the bullet end again. That worked well on the first cup. And I'm just gonna follow the lines, adding some dimension. I'm gonna also come down along here, grab the inside of the handle. Stampin' Blends are alcohol markers, and with that being said, they blend color-wise. They also kind of evaporate as you're using them, and so you don't get ugly start and stop lines. If you're coloring and you do go back and add, or you start and stop, you don't have those lines that would be a telltale sign of stopping coloring and then picking it up again later. Let's do the edge of this mug, like so. All right, that's the coloring of our mugs, but I want to show you one extra thing that you might want to do. There's a marker called a color lifter. A color lifter comes in handy. Sometimes if you color a little bit outside of the area that you meant to, this can help be a little bit of a fixer-upper so that it kind of erases or lightens your error. But it will also remove a little bit of color in case you kind of want to add a little bit of a highlight. So I'm just going to pull up a little of the ink here, and I'm going to pull up a little of the ink here. Again, you know from watching me, I am not much of an artist, so I don't have all the tricks that a true artist would, but some of these little things just help add to your coloring techniques. So that was done with the color lifter. All right, we need to stamp the contents of our coffee mugs. So let's use our early espresso ink and this cutest little stamp that is actually the coffee sitting in the cup. Okay, so we're just gonna put that right inside. Look how complete it looks all of a sudden. There we have it. All right, take your paper snips now, and we are going to fussy cut. What I recommend when you fussy cut this image is that you go ahead and leave a little bit of a white edge all the way around it. So number one, I think that's going to look better on your card. Number two, it makes it a little bit easier and faster to cut because you're just leaving a little white. All right, I also encourage you to move your paper. You'll see that I'm pulling and pushing my paper as I'm guiding my paper snips, not so much moving the scissors. Paper snips are a great addition to your crafting collection. These small scissors that I'm using, they are very sharp. They're sharp right down to the tip, so you're able to get into those small and tight spaces when you need to. And they last a really long time. Although I have several pairs, I think throughout the years, we're talking many years, I've only had one pair that really got used and wonky and the tip was kind of bent and I finally had to toss it. But otherwise, I've had a lot of luck even sharpening these when they start to get dull. All right, there we go with our fussy cutting. We have our image cut out, and you can see what that looks like with a little bit of white all the way around. Looks very nice. All right, this is going to go onto our card, positioned right about there. Let's do that with some liquid glue. Now, it's up to you if you had wanted to try to cut this little white space out. It wasn't worth it to me to take the time and the effort to do it, but you can certainly take your paper snips and punch a hole, and you can get in there and cut that out. If that's important to you, do it before you add your glue and before you attach it to the card. As I said, for me, it did not make any difference at all. I think the images look cute as they are, and I'm not worried that that is not cut out. All right, let's put our little word tag on here. We're going to do that with some Stampin' Dimensionals. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and use 4. If you are following along Stamp Club at home, you'll want to grab your own dimensionals and use 3 or 4 of them, as I'm doing. And then we're going to attach this to the front of the card. You can decide to put it straight across if you want, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, like so, which I think looks great. I'm going to choose to put it at an angle just to do something a little bit different. If you find that getting things straight is hard for you, and no matter how hard you try, it always looks a little crooked, then choosing to put it at an angle is a great option. All right, so that is pressed into place. And now we just need to do our little bit of embellishing. Let me show you these brand new embellishments that are in the January to April mini catalog. These are called Sunny Day Iridescent Dots, and the colors are bright and beautiful. I'm not exactly sure what colors they're supposed to be, but they definitely would go with Melon Mambo or other pinks. They would go with Peach Pie or Pumpkin Pie. In the orange world, and in these greens, I think it depends on what you put it with. We're using Coastal Cabana, so it's going to pick that up, but they could also lean a little more green, like Shy Shamrock, maybe, if you were using green. So they're kind of generic in that way, pink, green, and orange. They're not exact color matches to any one particular color, I don't believe. All right. I almost always use my gems and embellishments, rhinestones, in an odd number. I do 3 or 5 almost always. This is one of those rare times that I'm only going to use 2. I'll show you why, and you can decide. In your Stamp Club at Home packet, you were provided 2. So you have one that is the bluish color, and you might have gotten a small one or a large one, just depending on what I packed in your packet. So for this card, I'll use a large one, and then I'll show you what it looks like with the smaller. We're going to put one of those up here. And then we're going to take one of the pink looking ones. Same thing, size does not matter in this instance, and you can just grab a large or a small. And that's all I'm going to do with my gems, just the 2, because my third element is going to be a little piece of twine. So that's where I'm pulling in my rule of odd numbers, 3 or 5. I just didn't do 3 gems. All right, in your packet, you have a piece of twine, and this is the best secret I have for you today. This packet of 5 colors of twine used to be $15 and is currently on the last chance or the clearance list for only $3. So if you're not too late, be sure and go get this packet of twine for only $3. These are the retiring in colors, and so that's why they are going away. And I'm using the one that looks blue-ish. I believe it's supposed to be Tahitian Tide, but it looks great with our Coastal Cabana. So that is the buy of the day. I saw that and I went ahead and ordered another one so that I don't run out anytime soon. And so that packet of 5 spools of twine is on its way for $3. All right, I've tied a very simple little bow with my twine. And you know how we're going to attach this. We're going to use a little mini glue dot. Sometimes I take my bow and just stick it right onto the glue dot, which is fine if you want to do it that way. This is such a small area. I'm choosing to pick the glue dot off of the backing sheet like so. I'm actually going to kind of ball it up and make it smaller and then put it right here into place where it's going to go on the card. Now I can take my bow and I'm going to press it right down into the glue dot. Let me go ahead and trim those tails before I do that. It'll make it a little bit easier to do before it's glued down. Of course, you could still touch it up once it's on the card. All right, there, we're going to press that in, make it stick to that glue dot. Glue dots I like to think of as, they're like little dots of hot glue, but they're not hot. They're not going to burn your fingers, but they stick very, very well with your twine and your ribbon. And there we have it. We have the front of our card. Again, I'm so excited to use the Latte products, but without it being just brown and other colors in the designer series paper. We really mixed it up a little bit with this and the inside. That is Stamp Club project number 2. Let's move on to number 3, which is not hard, but probably has the most steps. So we're going to move to that one next. All right, Early Espresso is finished. Blackberry Bliss is finished. We'll just move those out of the way. A word about your mask. This is still super sticky and can be used time and time again. So often what I'll do is if I have made a mask that coordinates with a certain stamp set, I'll just keep it with the stamp set, at least until it loses its stickiness, and then you don't have to make another one. So we'll do that. We'll tuck that inside and move this stuff right out of our way. All right, for our third and final project, we're making this adorable fun fold. Now, this might look a little bit familiar or will look familiar to a Simply Saturday card where we did a card designed this way with entirely different papers and stamps. So we're trading it up and we are doing our little toadstool card that looks like this. So let's pull out your packet. If you are following along with Stamp Club at home, you have the materials for this ready to go. And your bubble bath piece is not yet scored. So don't just quickly fold it in half because this is not getting folded in half on this card. So that's why there are no score lines on it in your packet. I'm going to let you score it and I'll tell you where to do those lines. So set that aside. Then you have a thick piece of white cardstock. Go ahead and determine which is which because you're going to have a thicker piece and you're going to have a regular weight piece. All right. So your thick piece is going to be the base of the card. This is going to be a layer that goes on top of it. And then of course we're going to use our designer series paper and our other little pieces. So let's do our scoring. You can use your Simply Scored or you can use your Stampin' Trimmer. All right, and we're going to make 2 score lines on this. The first one is going to be at 1 3/4. You know what? I'm going to double check these so that I don't tell you the wrong. And my little cheat sheet with the scoring numbers is not in front of me. So give me 1 minute. to double check. I would hate to steer you wrong and have you fold your cardstock in the wrong spot. So we're going to do it at 1 3/4. I'm going to make a score line. Don't cut. Make sure you make a score line. And then at 5 3/4. All right, those are the 2 score lines. Either put it on your Simply Scored and do it, or use your trimmer with a scoring blade. We can use our bone folder and reinforce those creases. And then this card tends to want to like pop open like that. So not often, but sometimes I will also reinforce the fold the backwards way or the other way, just to really break down the fibers in the cardstock. And then I'll put it back in the correct orientation and do it one more time. So if that helps, it helps it stay closed a little bit more. Once we get some weight on here, it will also help. All right, you have 2 pieces of designer series paper, and let me tell you about this paper. This is called Toadstool Gardens. It is a pack of 6 by 6 papers, and it is celebration only. You cannot purchase this paper. So when you're planning your order, you want to reach a $60 subtotal so that you can add this paper for free. The colors, as I mentioned, are listed here. I always write them a little bit larger. And they are bright, happy, springy colors, super, super cute. So make sure that you look for this in your celebration brochure. Again, this is a free gift with a $60 order. So we are using 2 pieces from this packet of paper. Those are pre-cut for you in your Stamp Club at Home packet. And we can go ahead and attach those to the front of the card. This is pretty obvious, but you're going to put the larger designer series paper piece down here at the bottom. And then we're going to attach the other piece, the smaller piece, to the smaller flap. And again, the orientation of the card is this. Small flap opens up, large flap opens down. Look at that. That's such a fun print. Oh my goodness. I am going to need to place extra orders so I can get some more of this free paper because I know I'm going to run out very quickly. Now the stamp set and the punch are available as a bundle, which saves you 10% when you do the bundled savings. And it coordinates with the Toadstool Gardens paper. So let's take a look at that stamp set. It is called Terrific Toadstools, brand new in the January to April mini catalog. You can order it starting January 7th. And bundled, let me show you the punch, is this Terrific Toadstools punch, which will punch out 2 different shaped mushroom or toadstool caps and a stem or a base. So that's what we're going to use to create this card. Now the first thing that I did is I went ahead and cut out a piece of Granny Apple Green cardstock. Now, if you are following along at home and are not part of Stamp Club at Home, you'll want to grab your perennial postage dies and cut out this rectangle. And this one is on the smaller side. This measures about 2 inches by 2 3/4 inches. If you don't have the perennial postage dies, you can use just a plain rectangle cut to this size, or you could even use maybe a different rectangle die that you have. Perhaps you have stitched rectangles from a while back, or a die from Color and Contour. Those are other options. So I have this piece cut, and for those of you who are doing Stamp Club at Home, yours was pre-cut and included, or pre-die cut included in your packet. All right, next we're going to do our stamping. So find this little white piece that is going to fit on the green piece. That's what we're going to stamp. And then we will stamp the inside piece. Oh, let me see if I have this. I might have a piece wrong. Let me see. Let me check. These two pieces in my packet are the same size, and that is actually not correct. So in your packet is going to be the larger thick cardstock, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And you're going to have a smaller piece that is 3 3/4 inches by 5. You can see that I do not have the smaller piece in my hand, so I'm going to have to grab one of those when we stamp the inside. This is an extra base. All right, on that small piece, we're going to start with Granny Apple Green. And we're going to stamp the little hill, which when you look at the stamp, you can clearly see that this would be great as a mound of dirt or as grass. It would even look like sand, I think, in the right environment. So we're going to use it as grass. I'm picking up my Granny Apple Green ink. I'm going to stamp it off on a piece of scratch paper, and then I'm going to stamp it onto my white piece right down at the bottom, giving me a lighter green grassy hill, like so. Next, I'm going to add a couple of toadstool bases. So I'm using gray granite, and here's another little tip. On the paper packet, it says that early espresso is one of the colors in the packet. I can make a case for that because on the acorn, that is definitely early espresso, but there's a lot of gray in this paper and it isn't mentioned on the packet of paper. So I chose to use gray granite and I think it looks really good. All right, so here is one of the stamps and we're going to use this as our mushroom base. I'm going to use one that is, I think we'll use it full strength. Later we're going to stamp one off, but we're going to use this one full strength and put it, how far over do I want this? I kind of want it over and down because we're going to stamp some words on here too. I need plenty of room. So there's my little toadstool base. Then I'll do the little top of the toadstool, and I'm using pumpkin pie ink for this. So you'll take your pumpkin pie and the little cap part of the toadstool, look down through your stamp, bring it right down to the base of the top of the base of your toadstool and stamp that on. Okay, there it is. All right, then you have a piece of scrap in your packet. What we're going to do with that is stamp an orange. This is pumpkin pie. Let's see, how are we going to do this? I want to line it up in my punch, so I'm going to do it this way. All right, you'll see that the orientation of this might matter, so just pay a little bit of attention. I've got my strip and I've stamped it upside down. Now you can see that I can insert it this way and it'll punch out nice without a bunch of scrap getting wasted. Just a little piece got wasted. All right, so there's your scrap, and then you're done with that piece. And then in your packet, you have a tiny little piece of gray granite cardstock, and this is to punch out the base of the toadstool. And that's that. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to attach this to the front of here, but let's get our words on so that we know what we're working with. I'm going to use Melon Mambo ink and the words, and it's going to fit just barely, but nicely, right here in the space that we've left. Right up near the top and centered, ready, set, go. All right, there you go. I also find that my Melon Mambo ink looks a lot darker the moment I stamp it, and then as it dries, it lightens up a little bit. So don't be worried that it looks really dark. It totally coordinates with the designer series paper. All right, watch what we're going to do here. This little mushroom is actually going to go onto this piece and we're going to pop it up. So I'm going to first attach the base with just a little bit of glue. And I don't want a lot of this stem, so I'm actually gluing quite a long piece because I want this piece to be kind of short. I don't want it super, super tall. All right, once that's in place, we're going to put a couple of dimensionals on here. And the trick that I like to do is make sure that one of the dimensionals also goes on top of that toadstool base to help reinforce that it's going to stay in place. So I glued it and I stuck a dimensional on top of it. You can use regular size dimensionals here, or if you want, you can grab some minis. Since it's a kind of a smaller space, either one will work. Totally up to you. Don't put anything here on the bottom of the toadstool. All right, we're going to peel the backings off and press this right onto our little, we want it right below the high, kind of at a little angle. And it is going to stick off a teeny bit, but you can see that my dimensional is not a problem there. And then this whole piece is going to go onto my green piece, creating a really bright frame around it. There we have it. All right, press that into place. Now this can go onto the front of our card. Let's put the base together. So we have this piece that we already worked on and created. Here's that thick white cardstock that is the base. Let's put those parts together. This one had a little smudge of pink there, so I'm gonna flip it over and use the other side. That is what happens when I'm stamping and filming and leaving ink pads open, is things tend to drop or get dragged across an ink pad when I'm moving things around. All right, I'm gonna press that down very well. When we go to attach this, we only want it attached to our top flap. So the adhesive that we use is only going on to the top of this granny apple green piece. And in this case, because it might be the piece that you grab to open and shut the card, I'm going to use tear and tape. You're welcome to use whatever adhesive you would like, but I'm just going to use this to make sure it's holding on really, really well. So I'm going to put one strip on, and I'm going to add a second strip right below it because I have to keep it up high. And now this can go on the card, and we are ready to do our insides. All right, line this up centered between right and left. It's only sticky at the top, so I won't accidentally glue it shut. And then as you can see, this is where it's going to open and shut. Ah, super cute. Let's do the inside. All right, I need a smaller inside piece. Let's see if I have one pre-cut somewhere. I do. All right, I'm going to double check the size of this that I told you because mine was not right. This is 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches. So in your packet, this should be a regular basic white cardstock, not thick, 3 3/4 inches by 5. If by chance you ended up with a piece that is too large, go ahead and trim it to this size because now I'm a little bit worried if that might have happened mistakenly. We are going to go back to our little grassy hill and our granny apple green. Same process, ink it up, stamp it onto your scratch paper. And then this will be a second generation. And I'm going to stamp it way over to the right and also hanging off the bottom of the paper so that it's green all the way to the edge, as you can see here. Let's put a couple of toadstools on here. We already used this shorty. We're going to use that one again. This time, to mix it up a little bit, we'll do one dark one on this side of the hill. And for the second one, we'll stamp it onto the scratch paper and then have a lighter version down over here. Right in the middle, I want to use these tall, lanky toadstools. And so it's up to you. You can use it full strength, straight from the ink pad, or you can stamp it off onto scratch paper and then onto your card. Totally up to you. Let's put the mushroom tops on. We already used this in orange. Let's do that one more time for 2 of the mushrooms. I'm going to do this one straight, and then look how cute. You can angle these little mushroom caps so they look a little more whimsical. Very cute. You just can turn it a little bit off of straight. And then the last image is this little set of 3 toadstool tops that we will stamp in Melon Mambo. You can look through the stamp, and I'm going to look for these stems or the bases right through the stamp so I can line up my mushroom tops like so. There you have it. Let's put it on the inside of the card, and we'll add a couple of embellishments to this. Again, if you are so inclined, you can add another word stamp to the inside of the card if you like. I did not. There's the bottom, there's the top flap. Super cute. All right, so to dress this up just a teeny bit, we're gonna go ahead and use these sequins, which are also a sale abration gift. So with a $60 purchase, you can choose the purple adhesive backed sequins. There are 4 colors of purple. So there's a pale, which is almost white, and then there's 2 that are kind of pinky purple and a very clear purple. Beautiful. They will work with lots of different colors of pink, purple, white, and they will coordinate well with your projects. So we're going to use 1, 2, 3 of those. And it really wouldn't even matter which color you choose. Any color you choose is going to look good. I haven't used as many of the actual purple ones, so that's what I'm going to use. And then I'll show you a card. Let's see, did I use the purple? Maybe I did use the purple, so let's use the hot pink this time. I mean, they're all shades of purple, but all right, I'm going to do a large one here on my centerpiece. And a couple of small ones, maybe here. And here. And we're going to do one final thing with some twine. In your packet, you have a piece of white twine. I'm looking for mine. I've got scraps of that blue twine. Let me find my white twine. And we're going to finish this with a simple bow. All right, you only need about 6 inches of twine. If yours is curly or kinked from being on a spool or on a cardboard, you can give that a little bit of a straightening treatment by just pinching it between your fingernails and sliding and pull some of those kinks out. Okay, now we're going to make our bow. I'm looking from my vantage at your packets, the ones that have not been mailed yet, and they do include the white twine. So I don't know why mine wasn't in my packet, but yours should be. If you are curious about Stamp Club at Home, because you have watched today and you wish that you had a packet of materials and were getting to stamp along with me, I still have space and you can sign up for Stamp Club at Home. So if that is of interest to you, just message me. You can text, you can email, you can leave a comment under the video, some way for me to know that you're interested in it, and I will get right back to you and give you all the details of how to participate in Stamp Club at Home. If you're a local and you live here near me in Southern California and you would like to be a VIP and come in person and make the projects and gather with all the gals and have all the fun that we do meeting in person, I do still have a few spots open for VIPs also. So contact me if you would like to be a Stamp Club VIP and come to club in person. There is our little white bow, the same process as before. I took a glue dot, kind of balled it up, stuck it onto the card, and I'm pressing my knot of the bow right down into the glue. And there we have our final Stamp Club project popping up to say hi, and those cute, terrific toadstools. Very, very nice. A lot of fun to use these products. I hope that you enjoyed all 3 projects. Please contact me if you have any questions. Leave a comment. I love to hear from you. And as far as you wonderful Stamp Club at Home participants, thank you so much. And I will look forward to stamping with you again next month. Until then, happy stamping.